Welcome and ndemnada to my fellow Sabassemblers to today's unboxing. As you already know, today we have the XM Studios quarter scale Omega Red statue, which is definitely going to be another great piece for my XM Studios X-Men collection. And as you can see, this may be a big box or maybe not, whichever way you want to see it, but I can definitely say this is actually a much heavier box than it might look like. So before we open this box, I just want to say I appreciate everyone's support and I want to say thank you again. So everyone who hasn't subscribed yet, I'd appreciate if you do so, and don't forget to like as well. So let's start the unboxing. Oh, as I said, this box is much heavier than it might look like. So I just want to say, actually, I don't really know too much about Omega Red, but I just, honestly, I also just wanted to kind of fill up my X-Men collection, but I thought the statue also looks pretty awesome too. So let's just see what's inside the box. So inside, as usual, you're probably gonna have the art print and the QR codes. Okay, here we have the packaging guide as usual and the QR codes on the back for the assembly, and here we have the art print. Wow, I think this looks like pretty badass. There's extremely a lot of detail in this statue, and even the look on his face. I just try and show you a look of that. Wow, doesn't this look awesome? So let's put these aside first. And now we can start the unboxing. As usual, we have these hard carton boxes from XM Studios, and inside we have the X-Men logo. Usual and as usual on the side we have a short description of the character of Omega Red. So let's get all the pieces first, and then we'll start the assembly.
Atamo dum what a gojam gidum dum what a wonder gidum dum what a raya gidum dum atamo dum balangadiya ganzam መላየኔስ ነገር እስኪ ሻል ቢለኝ አባይኔ ልሻገር መላ የለው መላየኔስ ፍቅር እስኪ መላ ባገኝ ጭሙጋን ልሻገር እስኪ ተወኝ ሐኪም አጉላት አድክመኝ ምን ብዬ ነግሬህ ምን ብለህ ታክመኝ ምን ተሰማህ ብሎን ምንድነው ጥያቄ ምን እንደሚሰማኝ እኔስ ምን አውቄ አፈሩ ነጭ ጤፍ መሬቱ ሸጋ አብቃይ አየሩ እንደ ዋግምት የጎኑ ጋት ነቃይ እግሬ እንደረገጠ የአባይ ማዶን ዳገት የኖረብኝ ህመም ይቶኛል ድንገት የምን ከኔን ለማይረባኝ ነገር ይልቅ ልሂድ አባይን ልሻገር የምን ከኔን ለማይረባኝ ነገር ይልቅ ልሂድ አባይን ልሻገር የምን ድንበር ለማይጠቅም ነገር ተያይዘን በፍቅር እንሻገር የምን ድንበር ለማይጠቅም ነገር ተያይዘን በፍቅር እንሻገር ከወንዝ ወደ ማዶ እንሻገር ጉዳይ የነበረህ የኔ ቢጤ አፍቃሪ እንግዲህ ምን ቀረህ ሙላቱ ካለፈው እፎይ ካለች ሀገር ምን እንጠብቃለን በል ወንዝ እንሻገር በሉን ወንዙን እንሻገር ከንፈር ዋንቅብ ያለው ብሎ ማን ነገረኝ በግላጭ በስማት ምቻ አጠናገረኝ ህመም ያለ ክፍቴን መቻወቀልኝ ሰው ናፍቆት ነው ጉልበቴን የሚያልፈሰፍሰው ምንድነው ዘመዱን ፈዘዝ እዚያ ግድም ናንቺ እንሞካከር ኩታህን አገልድም ከገጠምን ወዲያን አናውቅም ግልግል አቧራ ውስጥ ይጨስ ወለሉ እስኪነግል ነው ድምድም አታመው ድምድም ድምድም ወደ ጎጃም ግድም ድምድም በወልቃይት ግድም ድምድም ወደ ራያ ግድም ድምድም አታመው ድምድም ድምድም በልንግድ ያገልድም
Okay, we've unboxed all of the pieces as usual. So we have the bass right here on my turntable. I can tell you already, this is actually, I think, one of the smallest and lightest basses I've actually ever seen from XM Studios. But it's got a lot of detail on it, but more to that later on. Let's just start with the assembly first, and then we'll get to the details later. So first we have this huge piece here with the small wires here on the bottom and the key and the peg, and that one goes in here into the slot with the key and a peg too that should fit in nicely, no issues with that. Next should be I believe this larger piece of I don't know, it's a power supply or some kind of machine or some kind of power plant, and this one goes in to the front right here also with a peg. And also with no issues. So, and I believe what we have to do in between is there's this rubber kind of thing that looks like a tube that should have to connect that to the other piece right here. And next would be this next part of the bass, also with another tube, and this just has a slot and with the key inside the bass, and we just have and the magnet, and just have to fit that in, and also with no issues. And we have to connect this rubber wire also into the base here. Beautiful. To now, so far so good. So next would be, I believe, this one piece of that fits in, I believe, somewhere here in the front, and that also, this tube also connects to the front hole. So next we have this huge metal wire or cable. This is actually real metal and feels very solid. And this fits into this longer piece of the base, and it has a small peg, or no, it's just a magnet. It does actually bend, so at the top a bit, and you just have to make sure you connect that to the other piece of the base. Just be careful not to break anything, and that fits in nicely. And also, so far so good. So I believe next would be the main body of Omega Red, which fits in right in the center of the base. And should go in this way, I believe, with a huge peg. And that fits in. The leg with the peg just fits in, and the left leg just kind of leans on the piece of the base. Wow, this is actually getting much bigger than I thought. Beautiful. So next pieces should be these small metal pieces with the, I don't know, they grenades or a piece of bullets. They have small pieces of, they have small tiny pegs that fit in right at his waist, and yeah, just fit in right there. And the second one here right on the left side, also pretty nice. And next part should be these parts of his, parts of his armor with these straps, and these also come with pegs, and they fit in here right in the back. And the next one goes right here. Beautiful. Looks great up to now. So next should be, let's start with the left arm that fits in with a magnet, and here you just have to kind of connect these straps to the shoulder armor, and they just fit in with a small slot inside the shoulder pads. And the same thing on the right side. They don't have any magnets, these straps, but they just like fit in. But that's no problem up to now. So it looks pretty nice up to now. Next should be, let's start with the first portrait, or let's do that last, and next would be his kind of whips, and these fit into his arms and his wrists. I think you just have to figure out which one goes in where, because there's no color coding or anything written on it, but that's no problem. They have a small peg too, and they fit in pretty nice up to now. Let's start with the first portrait next. Nice. And the one portrait comes with his kind of ponytail that fits in right at the top, and that fits in with a magnet. So here we have Omega Red. Wow, this looks actually pretty dynamic and really nice. We have the second portrait right here, and I'll just add that on later on. And first I'll just take a moment to look at the statue and look at the details, and we'll continue there. Okay, welcome back. I've had a few moments to look at the details of this statue, and up to now I can only say I'm very much impressed. I'll be honest, until recently I actually didn't really know much about this character, and really didn't know like the details of who he was and what his powers were, and I actually then had to kind of do more research about the character. But when I saw the statue, I just thought, wow, this thing looks pretty awesome, and I have to get that for my X-Men collection. So, and just to say like all about the character is like that he's like from like Soviet Union, and with an origin from there, and that he was more like an experiment like from the Russian military or government to make him more like a real soldier, like with extreme powers, maybe a bit like a Russian version of Wolverine, kind of with the same idea, but only that this one's like obviously pretty a villain, and he's already got this evil nature inside him. So let's look at details and the statue, and let's start with the base. And I can say like the base is actually, it's small, but it's got a lot of detail in it. Here, like I believe like the base is supposed to be more like part of this military base where he was actually kind of made or trained, whatever, because you have all these like tubes with the power sources or supplies, and here you have these kind of pressure scales with the valves on every side. What I think looks really awesome are these rubber tubes, and they look very realistic and look beautiful. At the bottom on the edges you have these small pieces of snow, which are like implication for his origin. Like he comes from Siberia, which is obviously known for freezing cold, snow, extreme temperatures, minus temperatures of course. And I mean, snow is a difficult thing to sculpt to make it look very realistic, but I think they did a pretty good job, especially with the painting. Maybe only the textures, maybe a bit too much gloss, but as I said, snow is pretty difficult to sculpt and make look very realistic. But I can't say that I'm disappointed. I mean, especially the metal has been done very nice. I mean, the paint job on this is very done very great. I mean, all the shading and the weatherings of the base look very realistic, and the different kinds of metals of the parts of the base here, there, and at least the base was done very good and looks very realistic. So next, let's start with Omega Red himself. Well, from the pictures at least I've seen from Omega Red, I mean, I think they did a great job with that. You definitely get the feel of Omega Red standing right in front of you. I mean, with his powers, I mean, you have these tentacles or whips, whatever you want to call them, ready to absorb the powers of his enemies. And again, like similar to the Gambit statue I've done in my previous video, if you haven't watched that, I'll leave a link to that later on. And you have these Wolverine scratches on from his blades, like on different parts of his body. I could count like seven of those, like one on his left shoulder pad and two on his left leg and another two on his right leg. That makes five, and we have like another one on his right shoulder pad and one more on his right arm, and those are like really badass implications for him, like fighting with Wolverine, and I mean fighting against Wolverine, and that's very much like on the Gambit statue. And at least I mean the portrait's paint job was done really nicely. I think you have so much detail, and I mean especially the mouth, teeth, and so much detail in the paint job, and that looks pretty badass. The eyes, you have these red eyes with this menacing looks on them. And only thing you might want to be careful is these pieces of his hair like looking out. Those seem very, very fragile to me. Not that they break off, like similar to the previous like Storm statue from XM Studios. A lot of people had issues with that, but thanks to XM Studios great packaging, all these came in without any breakages, and I'm really happy about that, and I hope it stays that way. So I mean, at least these tentacles, they're not made out of metal, they're pretty light actually, but they are a little bit flexible, but and they're not gonna like fall off or so. But for now, let's just like switch out one of the heads, and the one head has this ponytail and the other one comes without that. And let's just put this one aside and try the other face sculpt. Here we have the next one. Here we have him more like screaming out and just like raging towards his enemies, and on the previous one he just has this angry look on his face and more like just like kind of building up his rage inside his body. But here he's, this portrait, he's just ready to attack, and or he's like right in the middle of the battle against Wolverine or whoever. But it looks pretty nice, and the details have done also very well, especially on his body. Like you have this white look on his skin, like the comics, and you don't have this. He doesn't have this regular skin tones. He just has this kind of white, more like almost like a dead body, or more like a frozen body, and he has to show more like other implications of his origin, like from Siberia, and the same thing on his face. Especially like the inside of his mouth was done really well, and the teeth, I'm really impressed by that. And you have these kind of light blue tones of his veins and his triceps and biceps, like just like as if they're about to pump up. He's got this badass arms, like they just look huge, and just shows all his power and how strong he is. And even through his tight armor you can see all these muscles like looking out, and his kind of six-pack in the middle, and all these look pretty great. and up to now, like, I'm pretty impressed by the statue. Let's just talk about the size of the statue in height. I believe with this pose, he's the tallest part is the left tentacle, which is gonna be about 65 centimeters tall. With the other portrait, I think he might be a little bit taller. Let's just check that out first. Not quite sure, but I believe with the ponytail he's just like, there's just a minor difference, which might be, I think he might be like 76 or 78 centimeters tall, and that looks also pretty good, and there's not going to be like any huge difference, but it might be important for some people. And let's talk about the width. I believe like the widest part would be from the right tentacle to the one piece of the base. That would be, or actually from the bottom part of the base to the other, that's going to be 33 centimeters, and in depth it is it's only like 29 centimeters. So generally this is a pretty, I mean, small statue in terms of width and depth. It's not really that big, and you're not going to need like any phenomenal amount of space, maybe only the height of your display. But up to now, there's nothing bad to say about the statue, and of course I'll leave you some more details on his arms and all his other parts, and leave you more pictures on that later on. So I hope you liked today's show. Thanks for your support again, everyone else, and thank you all Sabassemblers and everyone else. It's just one more time, if you haven't subscribed yet, please don't forget to do so and hit the like button. So just help me to get the 1,000 subscribers line again, and God bless you, God bless our statues, and have a nice day.
የመንከኔ ለማይረባኝ ነገር ይልቅ ልሂድ አባይን ልሻገር የመንከኔ ለማይረባኝ ነገር ይልቅ ልሂድ አባይን ልሻገር አምባጓሮ ለማይጠቅመን ነገር ተያይዘን በፍቅር እንሻገር አምባጓሮ ለማይጠቅመን ነገር ተያይዘን በፍቅር እንሻገር እህት ወንድሞችሽ የጠላት ማርከሻ አንቺ ዳማከሴ ህመም ማስታገሻ እንግዲህ ወንድምሽ ሀገሩን ካረጋው ልምጣና ስስምሽ ስታክምኝ ላንጋው እንደ ልቤ ሳጣጥምሽ ላንጋው ማረማ ያዋንዝ ማረማን በላየ ማረማ ማይሳው ማረማ ጦናየ ሆ ምን ይልክምየ ሆ ንሻን ምልክት ሆ ቀልብ መለያየ እልልበይ 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 እልልበይ